Hi, folks out there. Welcome to the channel. I am your host, DBJ. Today we're talking teleportation, portals, warps, wormholes, and all that kind of great stuff. And we are specifically gearing this towards, on this Third Pillar Thursday, to talk about the environment. Yes, the environment. The third pillar, I always have to do this explanation because I think sometimes people get a little confused who are very new to the concept in general, that the third pillar of tabletop gaming involves exploration. The first and second pillar being combat and social interactions as coined by Wizards of the Coast for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And it basically it extends out from there. Now, our subject this week, because we love to take a subject and stretch it out through the entire week, deep dive into it, is about teleportation. More and warp and wormholes, basically. And we've taken it to the point of player characters, this being the power, this being the ability that dominates the landscape. Like it is what everything else is built off of. And where can we go from there? And for exploration, the word exploration makes it seem like going into dungeons or abandoned spaceships or old office buildings with flickering halogen lights, or waist deep sewer waters, or traveling through dark treeless wooded regions or something like that, which is part of exploration. But for me, exploration is the environment itself. Instead of having a battle on a naked, undescribed blue screen, I love the idea of not just having a sword fight with a monster, but having that sword fight with a monster on the edge of a cliff, or on docks that are being storm tossed and hit with frigid waters, and or fighting in waist deep waters down in the sewer, and adding complications to the environment. Well, with teleportation as like probably one of the top 5 problematic special abilities in role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, how does the environment affect that? And my contention is that doesn't go away, because no matter where you go, there you are. So where are you? Now we came up with a number of during our talks on Monday, Tuesday, yesterday. We came up with quite a number of limiting factors when it comes to being able to instantaneously step from one place to another. And one out of a number of those factors is the fact that you might have some kind of psychological limitation, meaning that when scared or panicked, you might have a physical limitation, meaning when you are in pain or fatigued, you may transport yourself to a place of comfort or origin or traumatic experience or something, much like stealing again from the movie Jumper. The kid in that movie, as he becomes an adult, still holds on to the trauma of falling through a frozen lake, almost drowning, and then reappearing in his safe spot, which is in the stacks inside the library. Yeah, Polaris says, "Be afraid." Where there might be comfort for player characters who have the ability to transport themselves to a place of either extreme safety or extreme danger, and not knowing what's going to be there. So when it comes to teleportation, sure, short range nightcrawler bamfing, uh, especially if you're just within line of sight or stone's throw, yeah, you could see what's behind a car or up on a tower, maybe, or across the street, or within or leaving a crowd or a dark alley, or up in a tree limb or something like that. Sure, you can see what's going on, but when you can transport yourself and you don't know what's on the other end of your portal or instantaneous transportation, there are still physical barriers. Also, there's nothing about instantaneously having you teleport that makes you immune to what's on either end of your teleportation or warp hole or portalized method of transporting yourself. So, for example, the 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 idea of stargates, while in a television show, you're kind of going to want to have your stargate in a safe place. It's hinted at in Eclipse Phase. Not well, it's more than hinted at. They pretty much tell you in Eclipse Phase, first and second edition, they have things called Pandora gates. They're basically stargates, and you dial in where you want to go. If you have the code, you may have a code to go someplace you've never been there before, and there's no telling what might be on the other side. You could easily step into a deep ocean, you could step into a frozen landscape, poison gas, a vacuum, high gravity, zero gravity, and float away. I mean, there's all kinds of things. You don't know what living thing is on the other side. You don't know what size of object or creature is on the other end of that. And if you're unprepared, who knows what might happen. Same thing when it goes to being able to jump your way around the world, to step through or create a spatial jaunt instantly. There's the thing is that momentum carries with you. You've got heat, cold. You don't know what time of day it's going to be. If you don't have a flashlight, you may not be able to see. There's no telling whether you have a portal that or a teleportation circle or something, whether there was a collapse, a house fire, riots, a war, all those kind of things. Dead Man Storyteller says Nightcrawler's limitation on the range of his teleportation was his confidence, hence line of sight, so he could hit his targets easier. Yes, as a matter of fact, there were quite a number of different stories, especially early on for Nightcrawler, where someone would have to convince him to teleport someplace either he hadn't seen or had never been to, or someone would maybe use their psychic abilities to give him a mental image of where he's going to go. And like his confidence, it might be a little bit, hey, if you can see, I don't know, a safe rooftop to get on top of after a flash flood, sure, it's not bad. When someone says, please save my child, they're in the basement, can you teleport in there? And you're like, I don't want to get my legs stuck in the steps. The lack of confidence would inhibit a teleporter's ability beyond the fear of what might happen if you fail. Could have just as much or more of detrimental effect than what might actually really happen if something goes wrong, right? So you have two things going on. One, I'm afraid to teleport into a place I don't know because I don't want my legs stuck in, a wooden beam, or have my skull stuck in an iron beam or something like that, or trash or whatever. And then there's the physical act of, sure, I'm not scared to do it, but what happens if I fail my roll or skill check or whatever the case may be? Will I end up inside of a solid object? So both of those things. And of course, there's the simple fear that everyone has, is the fear of the unknown. I don't know what's in that basement, or I don't know what's 20 leagues away. I don't know what's there. Why would I want to go there? That's a normal human fear of the unknown, which I think would be a perfectly acceptable method of limitation. Now, having the ability to teleport, of course, is one of the problems, and that's an air quote, problems in tabletop RPGs, is for the most part, characters and creatures and things are given teleportation, and there's no equal and opposite counter to it. Sure, you might have like a psychic disruption maybe or something, but there's very little in the way of tracking things down. Well, we already came up in our own world creating thing that you're probably going to have some kind of global positioning. You may have people who are trained as hounds who can sense where and when people have gone. You may have detectors that can detect the more people transport themselves, again, I'll bring up the Eiffel Tower, the more people transport themselves to a single location, the greater footprint it has. There might be, brought up the idea yesterday of beacons. beacons can draw people in, or might be an easier way to teleport to a beacon because it's a safe spot. And although sight unseen, maybe the ability to transport yourself is easier because you can sense where the beacons are located. The beacons could be turned, um, could be become a countermeasure. So, like I brought up the idea of a Faraday cage style thing where you're unable to teleport into a corporate headquarters because it's surrounded by a field, and maybe everyone is automatically transported on the outside of that field, or is shunted. A beacon draws people in and is shunted into maybe inside of like a Faraday cage to prevent them from teleporting out or something. Now, Omen says, I remember that in 40K, Space Marine Terminators have teleportation problems, but being encased in what amounts to super tank armor and devastating weapons in each hand is not much of an issue. Yeah, yeah. You listen. There might be even physical damage done to people transporting. We already talked about that, but you could have a running battle of transporting yourself from place to place. Um, Deadman says D&D has anti-teleportation fields. Are they? Is it specifically anti-teleportation, or is it just like anti-magic or dispel magic? Because I know both of those can be done as like an area effect kind of a thing, not as opposed to say counterspelling. But other than anti-teleportation, there's not much in between. Meaning like. Being able to track where somebody has already gone when they teleport, or when someone teleports away, that you can trace through their teleportation lines, like their quantum entangled lines of, like following a footstep, except it's through a fourth and fifth dimensional space. There's not much of the ability to shunt someone's teleporting to a place that they didn't want to go. Oh, hey, I'm planning on going home, or go to my little hidden haven that no one can get to, and all of a sudden they're shunted to someplace else. Or having a place with a natural disruptive field around it, like Stonehenge or the Bermuda Triangle, or the Aztec temples or something of that nature, where it disrupts the teleportation, either making it more difficult, or sending you to alternate locations, or causing more side effects on your arrival or disappearance, or making it, creating more fatigue, or something like that. Like, where, because most games are not built around teleportation, it just happens to be one facet. Mostly like superhero games and medieval, high magic spell casting games. They have that, especially even um, outer planar creatures have a lot of teleportation abilities as well. So, and then some of them can do it more of like a blink. Others can do it long range, even transporting themselves from through time and or space for long range. But building a story around it, when a PC is like, hey, I'm going to teleport, I'm going to grab the king and teleport 13 miles away. Does the king have special forces that can go after them to save his life? Are there other enemies or things that sense when someone teleports and tries to arrive at the locations that they've just traced for themselves as they've gone through um, some kind of like wickedly strange teleportation pathway? Is there, now, if you take in from a layman's point of view, going ethereal in Dungeons and Dragons looks like teleportation. So there are things that might exist in the other realms. So outwardly it looks like it's nearly instantaneous, but inwardly it might take a little while for the person to transport themselves into another world, kind of like essentially run around the corner and then jump back out of a doorway to appear, um, to appear where you used to, behind the car, behind the tree or something. You know, Plur says a teleport doesn't have to give you an exact destination. It could just drop you into a city-sized area. Then you have to stuff to explore around to get where you need to go. Absolutely, you depending on how you modify your, not modify, but in your setting, how teleportation is used, like you said, it might only be as accurate as city sized. And yeah, yeah, Plur says it'd be interesting if the party ended up in different places in the city. Absolutely. I'm down with, maybe the longer the range, the less accurate it is, much like using a laser pointer, trying to use a laser pointer and point to the moon. Just a slight flick of your finger when tracing a line with a laser pointer when trying to shoot at the moon can be the further you go, the distances can get much wider. So teleporting, you know, uh, a kilometer away, you might be off by just a couple of hand lengths. Whereas if you multiply that by thousands of kilometers, you might be off by, you know, your destination might be, like you said, a city-sized area, and height and depth might also be affected as well. So, for example, you arrived on the rooftop of a building with a locked door. Now, what do you do? And you're like, okay, well, I don't know what's on the other side of the door, or we're going to have to climb our way down and navigate around, things like that. The Vorn skier from Star Wars. I'm not exactly sure what that relates to, unless they are. There's also the hyperspace idea. We're going to do that for a future Friday as well. But there's also the hyperspace idea of um, not being able to go into hyperspace close to planetary surfaces or galactic cores or stars or nebula or something like that, which is why they have like hyperspace navigation, so you don't hit anything. But another thing also to do, especially with when it comes to having like a forced teleportation or panicked teleportation, much like in Dungeons and Dragons, there's the ability Misty Step. You get to step 30 feet, but you don't travel between an intervening distance. If you have other enemies that are able to do the same thing or track you or disrupt you or something, it would be pretty cool to have a running battle where you're running through a crowded city and then you run through a portal, or you teleport away. Now you're in a frozen landscape, and now you're on a rooftops of a abandoned section of a neighborhood, and now you're on a speeding train, and now you're deep in the sewer system, and now you're in a dark woods, and now you're in a jungle, now you're at the top of a mountain, and now you've fallen in deep ocean. You're on a cruise ship, you're on a beach, and the time of day could change. You could arrive somewhere where there's a hurricane going on or earthquake. There could be forest fires. Even in the movie Jumper, they were jumping from place to place, and there was literally a battle going on with tanks and explosions and AK-47s going off in the background. And who's to say what, if you don't know where you're going, who's to say what the hell's going on when you arrive there? So my thing would be turn the volume up to 11. If the players don't know what's going to happen when they get there, have just reach into that back pocket and pull something out and just have it really funny and really strange and really dynamic if they're literally blinking from place to place. um, you know in the world, no one knows. If you travel to another city, what if there's a parade going on, or there's a police action, or the city's in lockdown because of massive fires, or there's a poison gas scare, gas lines, or who knows what's going on. Now, Deadman says the Vorse scare native to the planet Makir were a wild, vicious canine species that had the unusual ability to sense the Force. This ability evolved to help them hunt Salamiri, but a side effect caused them to think that Force sensitives were their favorite prey, including Jedi in their appetite. Oh, okay. See, now I like stuff like that. The idea of like predators that are adapted to sensing those who can since we're talking about teleportation and stepping through portals, that could sense when those portals were created and the people who can do them. So, oh hell yeah! What I mean, that's a perfect adversary to have in a world like the one we're talking about. Now, Plura goes on to say that going back to what I mentioned, if your teleport is just a time altered other realm, you have that whole realm to explore. Imagine imagine a sewer system under a city. You go through the manhole, which is a portal, and when you travel in this totally different, perhaps hostile realm, you can pop out of another manhole, but it's much faster. You could move between cities in a day or something similar unless you get lost. Now, yeah, we that brings up a whole nother concept, but I like the idea of like you said, if you go through the manhole and come back out the other manhole, time wise it's nearly instantaneous, but for the person doing it, it might be moments, minutes, hours, days, weeks to not get lost in this other realm, to then pop out of the manhole to instantly appear somewhere else, which would become its own adventure, problems in itself, hazards, obstacles. But I absolutely like it. Now, um, in my obsession, I like to write one word notes and then take those notes and expand on them. And normally I don't like to read things out loud, just because I like this to be much more organic. But if I could, let me see if I can see myself to hold this up. Here's my phone, and I've got like a ton of like one word elements, that each one of these one word elements is its own like own thing. So I made a little list of like powers, um, the antithesis of those powers, some uh, some agencies, and even some adversaries. So here's some. I know this is Third Pillar Thursday, but I got to do this, right. Here are some powers that might be coming. Yeah, bullet points. I love using bullet point writing. That's my particular writing style. I wouldn't suggest it for everyone, but I bullet point write. So, oh no, do I have to sneeze? Sorry, I don't have a mute button nearby. I apologize for that. All right, so here are some of my grab bag of special tactics or powers that. Well, thank you very much, there, Omen. I need to be blessed. Okay, here we go. Um, here's my list. For powers: rip, blade, push, stun, Superman punch, blink, flip, bounce, split, open door, stasis, healing shunt, imprison, scry, pickpocket, summon items, leave behind, co-location, sweeping portal, purifying bath, double down, double door, sorry, blur, mirror image, phase, grant jump powers, switch places, disintegrate, and reintegrate, jolt, and energize. Now, what the hell does all that mean? Yeah, like you're not alone. All right, so rip. I'm imagining this is a catch-all for grabbing something or someone, teleporting, and leaving on ripping them apart by only grabbing the thing that you had grab onto. You grab someone's arm, you teleport 10 feet away, their arm's ripped off their body. Or you push someone through a portal, you close the portal in between them stepping through, you cut them in half. That's basically like a rip. Uh, Deadman says use a. Are you saying carousel? Like the cat used in the Watchmen movie to sense the teleportation. Oh, what was his name? Babasti? I can't believe I think that was the name of that cat. Genetically altered cat. But yeah, there could be hounds and things, but I'm picturing like throwing a portal to use as a blade. You could Someone with martial arts could punch, kick, leg trip someone through a portal to have them land somewhere else or someplace dangerous or something. You could grab someone and teleport and stun them because the person being transported um, might not have the stamina to sense the transportation. The Superman punch. You get ready to punch someone, you instantly teleport away. You fall 30 feet, teleport back to the exact spot you were at, one step closer, and hit them with the momentum of your fall. Um, Blinking is just like, it's like Nightcrawler. You can blink from place. You blink one or two steps away from the place where you're at. Caracol is it? I'm not sure exactly what that is. It's a powerful vessel that you specialize in missile deployment. Is that what you meant? You guys are strange. Um, although I suppose you could have a global satellite system that could sense the quantum radioactive energies or something that come from teleporting, which I think works. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of things like you anyway. The whole point of this is there's far more that we can play with that other than just I teleport somewhere and then as a game master, dungeon master, we just face plant and just go, oh, I can't believe this is happening. They're avoiding all of my hazards or something like that. My point is that the single place you're silly. The single place you can't transport yourself to is outside the game, right? No matter where a PC goes, they're in the game they're playing. So we as game masters and dungeon masters should take that into account. So yes, someone can teleport onto a rooftop. Is it an abandoned building? Maybe they might fall through that roof. Yes, they can teleport to across the mountain range and avoid all the encounters you had in your mountain range. But are there forest fires going on the other side of the mountain range, or an avalanche, or a plague, or hurricane season, or what have you? You don't know. And sure, they might only be involved in that particular thing for 1 or 2 rounds before they get the hell out of there because it's quite dangerous. But if you start adding in all of the other features we have about a necessary skill roll, the use of resource points to prevent or to mitigate fatigue, or psychic disruptions, or maybe sound is a, high frequency sounds or something that can disrupt um, transporters or jumpers that we're talking about. I mean, even I have more limiting factors than I actually have superpowers, right? Or weird, strange powers that someone can do. Like, for example, for my list, I've got track, um, spot, enhance, sight, sin eater, follow, drain, disrupt, read maps, fingerprint, slow, noise, radiation. These are all code words that are illicit in ideas. Like, for example, the idea of a sin eater would mean that someone else who does not have the ability to naturally teleport can touch you and drain that ability from that individual. Or there might even be a device that's able to drain it from you for short-term or long-term methods to drain that ability from you and then teleport only along your own pathways. What are some other ideas? Like radiation, pain, fatigue, fade away. For example, fade away might be if you teleport too often, you might literally teleport and never ever return again. And that might be a fear that if you teleport too often, you start to get like a teleport debt of some sort, that when you arrive, you look far more and more translucent until you start to solidify. And it might be roll percentile dice or roll a d10 every time you teleport, add a 1 to it, and it's like, okay, you've got 6 points of teledebt. If you roll a 1 through a 6, you won't come back, and you're like, but I'm trapped in the cell and I got to get out of here, I'm going to risk it. There might be something like that. Plura says, actually, I was joking with the Eve thing, but teleporting in that is slow. You have to have someone light up a beacon where you want to go. Yep. Joseph Sheet is like, yep, you teleport into an infectious disease ward at a hospital. Yeah, the rest of the world keeps moving. If you're a teleporter, there's still things going on, and a lot of things happening around the world are quite dangerous. There are hostage rescue situations. There are um, planes that are landing, or a helicopter ends up crashing in the middle of a city, or there's a multi-car pileup because of fog. There's bank robberies. There are drive-by shootings by drug dealers. There are, you know what I mean? I mean, sure, can you get a little bit out of hand with some of those events? Yeah, but on the other hand, adventure should always be facing the player characters, right? And for people who play, the idea of like making a character that never gets involved in adventure is kind of ridiculous. You know, it's like, I want to make a D&D character that owns a tavern and never adventures. Like, then what's the point? you know, um, adventure is where you're at, and does that mean that players are somewhat like drama magnets? The answer to that is always yes, because that's where the story is. No one goes to movies or reads comic books or reads a novel where the main character isn't involved in the story. It's these other people that no one ever sees. That's not how that works, you know. Um, Pelor says, yeah, in Star Wars, people generally stick to the routes which have been mapped out already. I suppose you could do it at a human scale. You can only teleport in a straight line, and you're going to get wrecked if you travel through something. Yes, and there's no saying that it needs to be a straight line. It could be like a highway. So within this, and I'm saying quantum, not saying that that has to be your description of what it is, but quantum tunneling could be a straight line, but the arrival location doesn't necessarily have to be straight. It could be much like a super highway. It's far easier to go along the known pathways than it is to diverge off of them, and you could make up those for any number of reasons. Like we've been using Earth as our scale. Most major continents and cities around the world have very important and very unique locations, whether they're monuments or natural springs or places that people love to visit. And so those places might be the beacons, right? Those are the places. Here we go, Eiffel Tower again. I guarantee you that if people leave teleport residue behind, it's going to be there because people will want to go there. And over time, the more people go there, the easier it is. Much like how we do in society, where there's a simple one-lane road, and then people start to travel to this place, and then they widen it to 2 lanes, and then they put guardrails up, and it's 4 lanes, and then they add lights, and then and there's more traffic and such. So, yeah, absolutely. Omen says, I remember that in the story Journey to the West, Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, could teleport or fly to the destination of the group. Unfortunately, he couldn't do that. It was the monk in the group that needed to go, not the Monkey King. And now, mind you, listen. If we wrap our minds around the idea that yes, teleportation does take you away from the adventure in front of you, then I think we should instead think of it as, don't put an obstacle in the way to have the PC avoid it with teleportation. Have the PCs teleport, and then place the obstacle where they're at, no matter where they are. Because you're only going to get hurt feelings if you're like, I have a deep dungeon, and the PCs are like, what are these, traps? I'm just going to teleport past all of them, right? Far better for the PC to go, oh, what are these traps? I want to teleport past them all. Okay, great. You go deeper inside of the dungeon, and a ghostly spirit or something, speaks into your ear and like, oh, great, I'm going to teleport away from here. And like, well, it follows you. You're like, really? Oh, yeah, you decided to teleport in. You're a powerful wizard or spellcaster or something. It's definitely going after you, and it can sense where you're going. I'm like, oh, shoot. Deadman says, it would be similar to the end of Star Wars Last Jedi. and jumping through the dreadnought. Ah, yes, if you are able, like for example, the idea of like I'm going to jump to from one unknown place to another unknown place. Yeah, although on a human scale, you might wreck shop, but you might be dead as well. Much like what is it, telefragging? You know, that that may be a thing, and it might, as a matter of fact, if you're being hunted by a cabal of evil corporate entities with their black-clad mercenaries with wrist-mounted devices that are allow them to track or trace or transport themselves through some kind of beaming technology or something, and to take them out, that might be a last resort. Like, you know what? I'm just going to teleport right through their group, and you're like, wait, okay, what? Hold on, you're okay. You do realize this is like, even though you're jumping through the quantum realm, this is a straight line travel. You're you're gonna die. Like, yeah, I know, but I gotta take them out so my friends can escape. And that'd be kind of cool to even though we know um, that we only see the person disappear in one spot and appear somewhere else, that they are literally translating through the empty space in between. That would be a very good image, even though it would be stolen from the Last Jedi dreadnought wreck. It would be kind of cool to see that done through like a bunch of soldiers and their military vehicles and a couple of helicopters and things like that. Yeah, that would be. I'm picturing like a frozen image of like a PC that's just like transported themselves, and you see all these people like thrown to the sky and ripped in half, and buildings shattered and stuff like that. That would be sweet. Um, there's also the idea that maybe, just maybe, teleportation causes its own problems. So if your teleportation, like Joseph Key mentioned before, like, is it noisy? Is it like a thunderclap? When you arrive, is it like the Terminator movies or The Quickening, where there's like lightning slash fairy fire that zaps things and causes like an electromagnetic pulse or a radioactive background or something? If it's highly disruptive, in a panic situation, you might teleport yourself onto a rooftop only to have that rooftop shatter, or teleport on top of a city bus for the city bus to the electrical bolt to light on fire the diesel fuel or something like that. Right? Like, you could have, the PCs might cause their own avalanche by trying to transport themselves to a mountainous snowy region or whatnot. um Tuberculosis. Oh no. it, how many different f- physical anomalies could we make with just putting tele in front of it? um Teledysentery. You just you just have explosive diarrhea, and it just appears in random places around the world, like, I don't know, over top of someone's table at a restaurant. Porting pox. Oh, I like that. I like that term, porting pox. Oh man, yeah. But yes, there are, considering if you're giving everybody, all the PCs, the ability to instantly transport themselves, and an entire society built around it. Like Joseph Keenan was like, what about range? Like, would rich people live on the moon or in space habitats and transport themselves down to the slaggers, the lower folk, the snails that live on the ground? Would they? If you could reach the moon, they'd be on the moon. Uh, how easy would it be to transport materials? Depends on the technology and the skill and or ability of the teleporters. Maybe for every pound or kilogram, it takes you an extra 10 minutes or an hour to summon up the energy. So to transport 30 tons of material might take, I don't know, it could damn near kill someone unless that's their specialty. So someone, now mind you, yeah, slaggers. Yeah, there are, it's possible Like, for example, could the average person teleport to the moon? Yeah. Without a spacesuit, that might not be what you'd prefer to do, but again, teleporting to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, or teleporting somewhere like into the um, a nuclear radiation center or something like that, it's possible that these other energy sources, um, nuclear power plants, electrical power grids, nuclear submarines, nuclear powered aircraft carriers. Come on, what's something else that has lots of energy? Um, the oh the collider, the atomic collider. Those kind of locations might be beacons of sorts that disrupt or draw in or severely affect teleporters. Yeah, Josephine, yeah, cut the slag or some slack. They can't help it. They can't teleport. Oh, there's a callback. Teleport to a frozen mountaintop with the power of mints. Rip. Exactly. Just as a matter of fact, yeah, the large Hadron Collider, absolutely. That's what we're talking about. As a matter of fact, you could if you could teleport every time you eat your York peppermint patties, you could always teleport to a mountaintop just to experience that minty freshness. um, or pass out from lack of oxygen because you literally arrive someplace with a thinner atmosphere. Yeah, I mean those locations around our world could affect them, and where with tuberculosis and porting pox, who's to say that when you're transporting yourself that you're not picking up and depositing bacteria or viruses, and it's you have to have the skill or ability to teleport and um, leave behind the things that are detrimental to your biology. So maybe you could teleport away. You've been poisoned, or you've been impaled, or something is in your skin. Could you teleport and leave that behind? It's possible. And maybe when on your sure you were stabbed in the stomach and you teleport away and the knife falls to the ground, but maybe you arrive and pick up some kind of deadly virus or something like that that your body isn't used to because you didn't grow up in Chile or Argentina or something. Yeah, sorry, you teleported into the fusion core. It's not a peppermint patty. Yep, that may be a thing that draws, people in. Maybe it's very difficult to teleport around those because you'll curve. Maybe there's a curvature, quantum curvature, or something where you curve towards a location like that, and you have to physically transport yourself further away. Drive, fly, um, take a bus, get on a train to get far enough away for you to feel like, whoo, I'm not going to get drawn to the Hadron Collider. Otherwise, I know three of my jumper friends that got pulled into that thing and destroyed. Um, Pelor says any infectious disease would spread so quickly if people were bouncing all over, all over the shop all the time. Yes, there might even be an organization whose purpose is to shut down people teleporting for no other reason than to stop them from spreading um, infectious disease and bacteria. And mind you, those things don't necessarily have to affect human beings. Yep, Tesla says quarantines couldn't be enforced. As a matter of fact, when you travel, a lot of times they'll have bans on fruits, vegetables, animals, plants, because some seeds or some bacteria um, are extremely they take over. For example, down in Louisiana, Alabama area, there's something known as kudzu, which was brought over from what I understand, by the first explorers to the States. And that stuff grows everywhere and it takes over everything. So, you're teleporting back and forth, having a good time, might kill off the local population of bats or bees or domestic pets or chickens or mad cow disease or something like that. It's possible for teleporters to do that pretty easily. Spreading the flu, hell, that's how people get sick getting on airlines, right? You get on a plane, you fly somewhere, you get sick on the other end. um, what is the con crud when you go to a gaming convention? A bunch of strangers get together at a convention, they start hanging out with each other, one person arrives sick and spreads it to everybody else. So if you could jump, you could spread a deadly virus or disease quite instantly. There might even be some other teleporters that are trying to stop you from doing it. There might even be quarantine zones. That would be I guarantee you, there would be whole continents that would have quarantine zones. Like, yeah, we don't want you here. And as a matter of fact, our 3 nuclear power plants actually power our quarantine zones, our disruptor towers or something like that. So no, you can't teleport into, I don't know, North Korea or I don't know, some Russian countryside or something like that, or the White House or whatever. Like, I guarantee there'd be a big giant tower if this existed, and they turned the power on that on always. So yeah, also, who's to say that being disrupted when teleporting doesn't automatically and purposefully throw you into a dangerous location, right? I'm going to teleport to the White House. Sure, you need to roll a 3% on percentile, right? If you roll a 1 on a d20, you get to the front lawn. Otherwise, you're going to get shunted somewhere else. You're like, oh, shoot. And then all of a sudden, you arrive in the Himalayas. You arrive 2 kilometers deep in the, Antarctica or something like that, under the ice shelf or whatever. Like, yeah. Yeah, teleporting to the White House and pranking the president will happen exactly once in a world where teleportation is accessible. Other than that, no. Now, there might be people who can scrub teleportation locations. So these superhighways you can go through, maybe some of them are cut off. So even if you tried to go to the White House, it doesn't exist in a quantum sense, like it's a void. So that might be a thing as well. Like, you can physically walk there and see it, but if you close your eyes, or that thing inside where you can feel yourself have the ability to teleport, maybe it does not exist on a quantum scale as if it does. When you teleport to the White House, the closest space is the far side of it, like a local mall or something like that. Like it literally is a teleportation single footstep, but you're stepping through whatever it is and never arriving there. Which could be, yeah. So, well, yeah, Omen. I mean, what's the first thing a PC is going to do? I'm going to teleport in, drop an explosive, and leave. Yeah, and like I said, it would, in a society with teleportation, listen, the first person that comes up with that technology, that's what they're going to think of. The second person next to them is going to go, yeah, we're going to have to figure out a way to prevent this from happening. Because why wouldn't you do that? Now, mind you, again, depends on how accurate it is, how fast of a ability it is to do it. Like, can you arrive somewhere where there isn't a Stargate or a Pandora gate or something like that? You have to answer that question. Can you just instantly do it like Nightcrawler and teleport in, drop a bomb, and then leave? Possible. If you do such a thing, are you going to be the one that's going to be hunted down while everybody else tries to figure out a way to stop it? The answer to that would be yes. There might be I imagine there would be plenty of unique locations that are quantum scrubbed, that are in places that you could never physically get to if you walk to it. Something deep underground with literally no mine shaft to get to it. Something deep under a haven deep under the deep sea ocean that you could barely swim to because of the pressure or distance, down in the Marianas Trench, on the moon. Space, some kind of floating space habitat, in the deepest ice shelves in the northern or uh, southern Arctic and Antarctic wastes, deep in a desert. You're absolutely positively going to have those places and important people living there, whether they're rich, whether they are some kind of like Tibetan styled monks. There could be criminal organizations. You're going to have governments doing it. You're going to have isolated communities that just want to be away from those damn young teleporters always jumping around. you know, a bunch of old folks like myself, like, ah, teleport off my lawn, you damn kids. Ah. French toast. What? So anyway, yeah, I mean, there would be a whole industry around it. Like, for example, you you may even have special teleporters watches that are like GPS weather set type of things so that you don't arrive in certain places. Like maybe the ozone disruption of major storms is a thing that affects teleportation. So if you suddenly teleport yourself to a place where there's a supercell hurricane, you can't get the hell back out of it. Oh, you're saying, oh, something blew up outside where you're at. Oh, ugh, nasty. Um, there's also the idea of you're going to have lots of. I think there's lots of stories and storylines involved in in using exploration as far as teleporting. For example, you're going to have a lot of people deposited somewhere where they don't want to be. You're going to have lots of people wanting to explore places that they're not able to normally explore because you can't get there by on foot or by plane. You're going to have individuals who are like extreme explorers, right? Like just transport me to this one area and I'm going to figure out how to survive, like Bear Grylls or one of what's it, Man versus Wild or something like that. It could be used as a rite of passage for a group of people. Like, yeah, we're going to teleport you 1,000 miles into the desert. You're going to have to survive on your own like a Bedouin. You know, um, hope you make it. See ya. It could be a military test for like a group of special forces soldiers. Like, you know, in order to become the best special forces soldier, maybe it is you are transported to the desert. You have to survive for a week. They come pick you up at the desert, instantly transport you to one of the most frozen landscapes in the countryside. Let you stay there for 3 days. Now you're there. Okay, now we're going to teleport you to a vast jungle, and you don't know where you're at. Like it might literally be a series of like teleporting punishments just to get you tough enough to survive or something like that, either through skill or special ability. There's also adversaries. I want to go back to. I want to go back to Dead Man and the the force sensitive canines. There may be things that are being created in the world that the jumpers and the PCs, the teleporters, are actually creating themselves. For example, who's to say that the weather patterns, background radiation, electromagnetic field around the Earth isn't being altered and or modified by people doing this over and over and over again? So weather systems could be bad, earthquakes, maybe something that is more um, elemental, arcane, sci-fi, sci-fi volume 11 kind of thing. Go back to my necrotic lightning storms or something like that, right? There may be telesensitive animals that either are modified from our own world. Um, let's go with those canines or large cats or something. There might be, let's go with the Brundlefly. The person gets into the teleportation chamber, little fly flies on in. Now their DNA is being taken over. Maybe there are like these hybridized animals that have they are bestial in nature, and want to go after teleporters because of some weird instinctual innate hatred, excuse me, of those that have altered their DNA by accident, right? You know, a half spider, half wolf, cat, bird thing going after, um, going after like the PCs because they they're bloodthirsty and they hate themselves and they hate the things that created them in the first place. Yeah, Plur says an extreme sport of chicken. Teleport a mile up and see how close you can get to the ground before teleporting away. Yeah, that would be a thing. Yeah, no parachute, no nothing. Just mile up, fall to the ground, see if you can survive. Um, I imagine there would be some of those who would half survive. They literally smack the ground and teleport at the same time so that their exploded body appears somewhere else. I could imagine someone hitting the ground and half of their body gets stuck in the ground while the other half gets teleported away. Yeah, I could see someone keeping their momentum, teleporting away from the ground, not hitting the ground, landing in a, I don't know, a bed in the hospital and smashing through the bed in the hospital. Uh, all kinds, all kinds of dumb stuff going on. And would people do that if they could teleport? Yeah, hell yeah, they would do that. You know, the first couple of weeks of this, there would be massive bank robberies, theft, assaults. I mean, how hard would it be to take a baseball bat to the person you hate and then teleport away? I mean, how would they come after you? You know, until this becomes a regular part of life, yeah, it would be a thing. Yep, Omen says, although if one considers the physics, the longer you fall, the faster you fall. Yeah, until you hit terminal velocity, um, which is a perfectly terrible jail cell. Someone puts you into a, let's say, an interrogation room in the police headquarters. They turn on the portal on the floor and the ceiling, and then you just fall through the floor from the ceiling to the floor over and over and over again until they turn it off. That would be pretty nasty. Plur says, honey, why is there dog food all over the living room? Taste. That's not dog food. That tastes like Gary. Here, you taste it. Let me see. It sure does taste like Gary. I mean, if I remember what Gary tastes like, yeah, I got Gary in the back of my mouth. I don't. Ugh, I need to drink something. Um, you take that as you will. But yeah, you depending if there's is there conservation of momentum? We talked about that. Maybe, maybe not. There's also the idea of if with teleporters and engineering, how many real yeah, I knew listen, you and me, Pelor, we're the same dirty dirties. Yeah, who's to say how how something is constructed if you could instantly transport the materials to a place instead of having to drive a truck or a ship or have it helicoptered in or use a crane or something. So maybe you can design um, Escher-like sculptures or something. Maybe things are quantum entangled so that you could have a government headquarters, but that government headquarters is linked through open teleport portals, different places around the country. Also, who's to say that the Hadron Collider isn't used by this international force to go after the PCs? And what they do is they throw something on the ground that's a big like teleport circle, or they open up a portal, and that portal opens up to the Hadron Collider, which then disrupts the teleporters who are trying to teleport away. If you understand what I'm saying, right? Like the Hadron Collider might be the biggest secret in the world where all the teleporters are being held captive because they can't get the hell out of it because they're in the middle of it. And slowly and surely, this international group of enforcers are going after all these other people. Or the PCs could be those agents. Could be. Um, Maybe there's technology that is able to duplicate some or all of the teleporting functions of these other people who are disrupting society so much. Um, maybe they are the literal, they're destroying the ecology of the world by doing it so much. Yet, while they're, it's a catch-22, right? They're running from the authorities by teleporting away. The teleportation is affecting the world. And when I say affect the world, once you turn the volume up to 11, who's to say that people aren't driving down the street and they drive through a quantum shard in the middle of the road and appear in the middle of the desert or something, right? Or a sailing ship is like, oh, I'm just in my yacht and I'm sailing along, and then they flow through a random, yeah, Dark Sun style, right? Who's to say that it isn't, over time, it's not literally killing life itself. Nothing can grow there. People can't live there. Maybe it's literally a disruption of all of those things. So, yeah, I could imagine that there would be some form of side effect, global side effect, not necessarily a side effect on the PC, like, oh, you teleport and gain 3 points of fatigue. I'm talking like blotting out the sun kind of thing, turning the ground into like a black ash because of doing this over and over and over again. Much like hyperspacing through the Dreadnought in The Last Jedi, maybe these teleporters have made these like scars across the ground, um, or maybe those scars are starting to appear like living keloids. The ground itself, there's a mile and a half of like flowing pus and bubbling ooze coming out of the ground, and no one wants to cross it, and it's like it smells bad and it's highly acidic, and you don't want to get it on your skin and stuff. Maybe it's has a mutant or a mutating factor to it or something. There could be random, I'm calling it shard fall, where like broken mirrors and glass, it appears in random locations, and if you fall through it, you'll appear some other place randomly. Or maybe people accidentally fall into it or drive through it, and they appear somewhere where they had some deep psychological harm done to them. Someone drives their car and they remembered where they failed out of college, and their car suddenly appears 15 feet in the air and slams onto the campus of the college where they got drunk and their grades went down. Or they appear in the cemetery of one of their loved ones, or they appear at their old home where they were abused or something like that, right? Um, yeah, when you teleport, an equivalent of the same mass teleports the opposite way, so you switch places. Ooh, yeah. Your transportation could could switch places with something else. So that's a great idea as well. There could be some kind of like residual elemental effect to it. So you know what's a good you teleport from the desert to the Arctic, so you leave an equal mass of ice and snow back where you came from, and you're standing there in the Arctic surrounded by quickly dissipating heat and quite a few 100 pounds of sand. That's pretty good evidence that somebody was teleported here. uh, yeah, that could be a thing. And of course, like we said before, you could have all kinds of organizations. There could be literally a medical facility that sucks in teleporters that are injured, that arrive at the medical facility, and we're like, we've been tracking you, and we noticed that you've been, dragging around this disease with you. You're going to have to stay here in quarantine with the rest of us. And of course, the doctors and nurses there, they can all teleport themselves, and you're like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get the hell out of here. So there's all kinds of things. Maybe there are people who try this power and never dominate it, so they become mutants. Like, they teleport with their friends, and then their bodies merge together, and they become this six-limbed, multi-legged multi-headed monstrosity that's angry and wants to kill anything that can teleport. Maybe there are someone loves to teleport with their domesticated cat or dog, and they merge with it, or both of them become monstrously mutated because of the background radiations that are caused. Yeah, teleport people to isolated prisons. Hell yeah, of course. There's a prison you get to you can't get out of, and who knows where it's at? You don't know where it's at. Where's the prison? Maybe the prison itself is a series of linked open teleport tubes, so that the prison isn't one location, but it's actually a number of different locations all linked together by hallways. So you just walk up to the door, type in your code, doorway opens, and you go through the other part of the prison. But the prison's literally, there's a section on the moon, there's another section in the deep ocean, there's another section literally floating in a submarine, or like a cargo ship or something. That'd be kind of weird, but I love that idea. Pillar-ist says violent sports teleporting injured players instantly away from the game to patch them up, a la Dreadball. Of course. Yeah, military personnel. Matter of fact, those black-clad military mercenaries going after you might all have teleport wristers, and every time you punch, kick, shoot them, them or their ally goes and hits their wrist and teleports them away to only bring in more backup mercenaries to go after you. So again, you know me and like third pillar, maybe hitting them about the head and shoulders isn't the smart thing, because there's always more of them, and just punching and kicking them is useless, because you knocked them out. One of their cohorts or whatever hits their wristy, they disappear away, and you're like, oh, we were going to interrogate them. Nope, sorry, they're gone. Yeah, and of course, both the mercenaries and the PCs are going to have a room filled with weapons, of which they could instantly reach in and or concentrate and have those weapons transport into their hands or on their backs or something like that. You're going to have that. So hells yeah. Anyway, guys, we went past the hour mark. I want to thank you for participating. I really appreciate it. Tomorrow, of course, is Future Friday, which, you know, technically we've been hitting the modern day in the future part, but yeah, we're going to go to Future Friday, where we will talk about you know, hyperspacing and of course teleportation on a personal level, and how high technology and advanced civilizations will work with that. So guys, thank you very much. While I will be on holiday, there will still be a show next week. Next week is all about Thanksgiving, specifically the inciting incidents that have led up to what Thanksgiving is. So we won't really be talking about the holiday. We will be talking about the events up and leading around it, and how can we use that in our tabletop games. So I thought we would do that as well. So guys, thank you very much for being here. As you know, your time is very valuable, and you like to spend it with me, at least in small part. So I very much appreciate it. I hope you're able to leave with a little bit of change. Have a great one. See ya.